Okay, so I'm going to get started. Um, I know that people will still be joining for a few moments. Just to let everybody know, also for the benefit of people who are arriving a little after 6, that we are recording this webinar, and the recording will be available on YouTube in a couple of days' time. So if you miss anything that we're talking about, or you'd like to review it, then of course you're very welcome to do so. Just before we get started, a couple of housekeeping issues. The first is that you should automatically have your microphone muted. If that changes during the webinar, please could you just mute yourself again? We will be taking questions via the Q&A, which is an icon should be at the top of your screen, perhaps at the bottom, which is called Q&A with a little question mark in a speech bubble. If you have any questions, either at the end or as we're speaking, please just pop that into the Q&A, and we'll be leaving plenty of time at the end of today's webinar for questions. So if you have any questions at any time, please just feel free to put them in the Q&A rather than by unmuting your microphone. If we don't have time to answer your specific question, then please don't worry, because we will get back to you in the next few days with an answer. Okay, so first of all, Andrea, could I just ask you to advance to the next slide? Okay, so just the one just before that. That's it. Great, thank you. And again. Okay, while you're doing it, Andrew, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to today's webinar, where we're introducing 13 projects that we are offering for September 2026 start in Living Well with Water. I want to start with just a brief introduction to what Living Well with Water is all about, and then I'll introduce some of the team. So how can we live well with water in a world of rising water risks and growing deprivation? This is the central question we hope to answer through Living Well with Water, which is an exciting new partnership between the University of Hull, the University of Liverpool, and our partners, the National Trust, the Royal Geographical Society, and Tate Liverpool. Many towns and cities have historically grown up near water, and we know water is not only central to life, but to the livelihoods of the many people who live by the coast or near major rivers and estuaries, and who work in industries like fishing, shipping, tourism, and offshore wind and oil. But we also know that living with water is becoming increasingly challenging for coastal communities. In the UK, over the past half century or more, many of the industries that coastal communities have traditionally relied on have declined, meaning that communities often lack the resilience and resources to tackle the rising water risks they face from the rising seas and increased storms of climate change. These are complex problems that require joined-up solutions. We need to work across the disciplines, the sciences, the arts and humanities, and the social sciences, to fully understand not only the science surrounding climate change and the risks climate change poses to coastal communities, but also the history, the culture, and the people within these communities. What do the people themselves who live by the coast see as the biggest challenges facing them in future years? And how can we learn from the past, from the history, the literature, and the culture of living with water in these communities? And how can we use art and creativity today as tools to engage and involve communities with their past, present, and future? So over the next 4 years, we will support 39 doctoral awards to work with UK coastal and estuarine communities, and to together tackle the big questions that face these communities now and in the future. Living Well with Water are doctoral focal awards funded primarily by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, but also with support from the Natural Environment Research Council. And the fact that our awards are uniquely funded by both research councils, the councils for the arts and humanities and the environmental sciences, speaks to what I think is really exciting and innovative about living well with water, which is that it recognises that complex problems can only be solved through interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary conversations. For this reason, all our doctoral awards, which we'll be introducing today, work across a range of disciplines drawn from the arts, the humanities, the social and environmental sciences. And they all draw on expertise, not only from the Universities of Hull and Liverpool, but also from our partner organisations, the National Trust, the Royal Geographical Society, and Tate Liverpool. And we'll be hearing more in a moment about the training we offer as part of these awards and the placements at partner organisations that all doctoral award holders will undertake. So that's enough from me. I want to introduce the other members of our team. So Andrea, if you just, thank you. I have spoken enough already. My name's Stuart Mottram. I'm Professor of Literature and Environment at the University of Hull. And Bryony, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I'm Bryony McDonough. I'm Professor of Environmental Humanities here at the University of Hull. I'm a geographer and environmental historian by training. I've long been interested in watery places and living well with water, particularly in relation to flood. And I work on a range of projects using place-based, creative and participatory approaches to work with communities facing increasing flood risk and coastal transition. Neil, I'll hand over to you, and then I think we've also got our colleague Alan to introduce himself as well.
Thank you very much, Bryony. My name is Neil MacDonald, I'm Professor of Geography at the University of Liverpool. I started off very much as a very physical sort of hydrologist, and I've wandered across the discipline, so I'm now increasingly involved in community engagement and actions and understanding around sort of the social aspects of flooding and flood risk, but still undertake some of the more physical aspects as well of flood risk assessment. Alan, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Alan Greaves. I'm a reader in archaeology at the University of Liverpool. My research is focused on classical archaeology, so Greek and Roman archaeology in the UK and elsewhere, particularly interested in coasts, but also kind of the cultural reception of the sea, how it's understood through literature, through art, but also, as well as the kind of physical role that it plays in economy of the ancient world. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Alan. And so I've told you a little bit about what we're aiming to achieve in Living Well with Water, and I mentioned that we also have a unique training package, including placements at some of our partner organisations. So I'm going to hand over to Bryony now to talk us through that.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart. So if we can advance the slide when we're ready. Excellent. Thank you, Andrea. So we're really delighted to be kicking off this programme. It's new for 2026 entry, though it draws on a great deal of experience at both institutions, running related collaborative doctoral training programmes, doctoral scholarship schemes, and the like, and a number of other joint programmes and projects between the universities. So as Stuart's already said, and as Neil will elaborate further a little bit later, the projects we're advertising are 3.5-year doctoral training projects. So you will do a PhD and also a doctoral training programme as part of that. That training programme draws on experience and expertise at the Universities of Hull and Liverpool, and also on that by our external partners and by a range of other providers. We will be offering a cohort-wide training programme. So our intention is very much that the PGRs, postgraduate researchers registered at the University of Hull, will work with and interact with those at the University of Liverpool, and that there will be a collective training programme across those two institutions and drawing on the expertise and support of our partners as well. So in terms of the training that you will be undertaking in the programme, obviously everybody will be writing a PhD thesis, researching and writing a PhD thesis. Alongside that, you'll take part in a range of activities and training to support you in delivering that goal. So we know a PhD is hard. You will learn a lot over the 3.5 years of the programme. It's something we've all done ourselves. We know how challenging it can be at times, and we will be putting in place all of this support to help you get there. Key within that training is that students at both institutions will take part in some research skills training. So that will differ slightly between the institutions, but essentially you'll be looking at what skills you already have, what skills you need for your PhD, what skills a PhD student needs. So that might be presentation skills, it might be writing skills, it might be a range of specific technical skills for your PhD. So looking at what's needed and working out where that training can come from. It's also about thinking about ethics, research integrity, and other key skills as a PhD researcher. All of our students will also be involved in the Living Well with Water cohort training programme. So that will be delivered through things like an annual seminar series, reading groups. Those exist at University of Hull for in the current Centre for Water Cultures, and similar programmes at Liverpool, and we'll be expanding that, delivering something specific to your needs and your cohort within Living Well with Water. There'll also be a cohort residential, so we'll all meet up in either Hull or Liverpool or somewhere in between, or ideally somewhere watery where we can look at the sea. Opportunity to see both the North Sea and the Irish Sea through the programme. We'll meet up for residential. There'll be masterclasses, skills training, again thinking about academic presentations and writing, how to write a first journal article, learning group work skills, and also opportunities for mentoring, peer-to-peer, and drawing on academic expertise. Then the other kind of key component within the tripartite kind of training programme is around taking an industry experience with one of our partner organisations. So all of the students registered, all of the postgraduate researchers within the Living Well with Water Consortium will undertake a placement. So at one of our partner organisations, so the National Trust, Tate Liverpool, or the Royal Geographical Society. That will be 4 weeks, most likely in year 2 of your programme, but with some flexibility to work around other things. And it'll be an opportunity to work with an external partner organisation on a real world project. So it's not about doing your PhD, it's about taking on a project, delivering that in collaboration with a partner organisation. We've had former PGRs do that through other schemes who report that they learned new skills, increased their confidence, learned important things that eventually went into their PhD projects and supported their own future career aspirations. That will be assessed via things like a reflective report, blogs, or presentations to the group. So an opportunity to undertake the placement, but also really reflect on what you learn from it, how it develops your skills. All of these opportunities will be supported by a research training grant, so that can be used to pay for research trips. So whether you're doing archive work, whether you're undertaking interviews, oral histories, or collecting samples from the field, whatever it is you're doing, there will be some funds available to support that. Also conferences, so we'd hope that all of our PGRs engage in presenting their research in academic and potentially practitioner conferences, and also to support your placement expenses, all of which is intending both to help you deliver the best possible PhD, the best possible thesis, but also to support you in your career aspirations going forward. And this is very much what the cohort as a whole is about, ensuring that we train the next generation of research scholars that will work in academia, but also in all sorts of other places across the arts, humanities and environmental sciences. So that's it on training. Again, I can answer questions at the end, and we can flick on to the next slide, and I think we hand back briefly to Stuart.
Thanks so much, Bryony. I mentioned earlier that the importance of cross-disciplinary, transdisciplinary solutions to the problems that the coast faces in the coming years. What are we going to do now is very quickly we're just going to introduce the 13 projects that we have available for a September 2026 start. Some of these projects are based primarily at the University of Hull, and others are based at the University of Liverpool. So that you're not listening to me entirely, we will be swapping between speakers for these projects, but I will be introducing the first one, and partly because I'm also a supervisor on this. So the first project, and these ones are all based primarily at the University of Hull, is affordable 3D scanning and XR visualization to address coastal challenges. Now, like many of these projects, it's supervised primarily at the University of Hull, but with some cross-supervision support from colleagues at Liverpool. And so this project is led by my colleague at Hull, Professor Yang Yang. So Yang Yang is a professor of immersive design, and then I am, as I said, my primary interest is literature and environment, and primarily relating to how flooding shapes literature across time. And we also have, and we've already been introduced to Dr. Alan Greaves, who is an archaeologist, among other things, as he's introduced himself. So this project, affordable 3D scanning and XR visualization to address coastal challenges, looks at the technologies that are now available through 3D scanning and immersive design to capture fast eroding coasts, and also to use those immersive technologies as tools to engage communities with coastal change. But many of those technologies are expensive and inaccessible, particularly to coastal communities. So this project is looking at ways in which we can make those technologies more affordable, and it is specifically thinking about ways like open access technology to make it more affordable and accessible. So the project will test a number. First of all, see what's available, test drive those technologies, working with communities and those communities will be coastal, but will be chosen by the doctoral students on this award. If you're interested in this project, and indeed any of the projects we're talking about tonight, then we will be occasionally flashing up a QR code on the slides, and that QR code will take you to our website, which also launches each of those projects and how you apply. Okay, so Bryony, I think you're introducing the next project, Living with Coastal Landslides.
Thank you. So we'll just flick on it. Kind of excellent. Thank you. So this is a project led by colleagues at the University of Hull, Dr. Hannah Worthen and Dr. Anna Bird. Hannah is a historian and historical geographer by training, interested in environmental histories in particular. Anna is a geologist by training, structural geologist, who has worked on a range of landscapes, environments globally. So this is a project bringing together two colleagues from really different academic disciplines to think about how we can support people to live with coastal landslides. So particularly exploring the lived experience of communities affected by coastal landslides and bridging geological data with archival and community-led research. So the aspiration here is to look at data, a range of different types of data on coastal landslides, by which I mean landslips and land slumps, and various other types of coastal collapse, to look at that in really long durée perspective. So I know the team are thinking about how they can use a range of early sources. So that might be early modern diaries or 19th century newspapers to recover evidence of these coastal landslides. Combine that with geological data, and then think about how that can be used to engage people in thinking how they can live better in these coastal places with these increasing risks. So really an exciting opportunity, great project to think about. And again, as Stuart says, there'll be QR code flashed up where you can follow those. I can see a hand up there. We will take questions at the end if you can, please. If it's something urgent, do please feel free to pop it in the chat. All right, I will hand on to the next speaker.
And that's me again. So the next project is also based at the University of Hull. It's exploring sci-fi concepts for future flood resilient communities. So this project is led by my colleague, Dr. Stephen Forrest, who's a human geographer and works in flood resilience. And it's also supervised by Ed Hurst, Dr. Ed Hurst, who specialises in creative writing, particularly in science fiction, and then myself as someone who can analyse literature. That's what I bring to this particular project. Now, sci-fi has been around since the mid-20th century, if not before, and there have been a range of imaginings in sci-fi of flooded futures. Perhaps the most well-known is the mid-20th century novel by J.G. Ballard, and throughout then the late 20th century and into the 21st century, where sci-fi morphs into a concept called cli-fi, or climate fiction, where these imaginings take on a relationship with climate science and the way in which we imagine the future. So this project looks at these imaginings in fiction, but it also, really innovatively, thinks about how those imaginings can actually shape the present and the future. So it works, first of all, by reading literature, analysing and thinking about how future societies are imagined in a world of rising sea levels. And then it takes those concepts and applies them to real-world settings through community workshops. Okay, so that's enough on that, I think, for now. If you're interested in that project, then of course, do follow the QR code at the end to find out more about it. Okay, and oh, that's also me, the next project as well. So this is Signs of the Sea, Coastal Heritage and Creative Practice. This is supervised also by colleagues at Hull. Professor Rina Aria is an art historian by training with an interest in cultural theory. Dr. Justin Burns is a lecturer in graphic design. Dr. Anna Fitzer is my colleague in literature who works primarily on 18th century literature. And Dr. Kevin Korstefin is interested in Gothic literature, specifically seaside Gothic and coastal Gothic. So this looks specifically at coastal seaside resorts and analyses the way in which art, media, graphic design communicates a cultural identity for these places. The kind of places we could base this project on is entirely up to the award holder to decide. But for example, we might imagine Scarborough or Whitby on the East Coast, Blackpool on the West Coast. So how is cultural identity communicated through graphic design? And how might we use those media to reimagine the identities of coastal communities in the future? It's a practice-based PhD with a particular focus on art and design. Okay, so the next project I'm also handing back to Bryony for.
Great, thank you. So this is Chronicled Core, Flood Histories, Resilience and Community Engagement. It's supervised by myself, by Neil, who you've already met, and by our colleague Jonathan Dean, who works in kind of paleo-environmental contexts, working with mud and soil cores to do kind of deep time physical geography perspectives. So the thinking here is that we will integrate historical, archaeological and paleo-sedimentological records, so mud cores, with digital and humanities approaches and creative community engagement. So again, very disciplinary, ambitious, really exciting. And in doing so, the project team, the PGR, will shed new light on how people lived with and adapted to water and floods in coastal zones over millennia. So again, using a combination of methods, we'll generate new knowledge about probably 2 or 3 chosen case study regions. One of those, given that the PhD is based at Hull, will almost certainly be the Hull Valley, but the opportunities for the PGR to choose their own case study as well, and or to pick up a case study on the west of the country, somewhere commutable from Liverpool. So we'll be generating new knowledge about how people within case study regions lived with floods over periods of thousands of years. We'll be correlating the sediment proxy-based records of flooding with the historical archive. So where can we see a flood that happens in the sediments that have been preserved? Where can we also see that in the archive, and vice versa? We know that's possible, and there are really exciting opportunities to be able to learn more about that. And then how can we use a range of digital or creative community engagement approaches to think about how we can showcase these histories and this heritage to help support people in coastal adaptation and change. Then if we flick onwards to the next slide, please, Andrea, I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the next project. So this is Heads Above Water, representing fishers and fishing culture. It's supervised by Anna Fitzer, who, as Stuart said, is a literary scholar at the University of Hull, by Magnus Johnson, who I think may even be on the call, or at least somebody with that name is, who is a marine scientist here at the University of Hull, and Mark Riley, who's a human geographer at the University of Liverpool. And this will be a project that explores perceptions of fishermen and fisherwomen, fisher people, in fiction, in art and in song. It will use literature and other creative art forms to shine a light on coastal fishing communities and to help explore the contemporary fishing industry. So we know that fishing industry was once the backbone of very close-knit communities, fishing families at the coast, but much of that has now become fractured. It's labouring under pressures of government policy and under the impacts of climate change. So it's an opportunity to think about these kind of communities as places of work, pleasure and recuperation, and to explore those kind of changing geographies and histories over the recent period, 20th and 21st century, and to think about what that change will look like in the future and how the arts, humanities and environmental science can support those transitions. Flicking onwards. So I think this time handing back now, or handing over now to Neil, possibly.
Thank you very much. So the next set of projects are those that are going to be predominantly based probably at the University of Liverpool, where the primary supervisors are at Liverpool. So I'll run through these relatively quickly, just highlighting some of the aspects that may be of interest and some of the key staff and colleagues that are involved. And again, you'll see that most of the supervision teams do span Liverpool and Hull, reflecting that interdisciplinarity as well. So Dr. Young-Yik Lee is based in architecture, and Professor Rina is based in art history. So we've got a nice blend of the arts and social sciences coming across here, looking at the spiritual experience and heritage of coastal sites. And this really explores the role of sound in these communities and how they have changed through time. And it involves a range of different approaches through sound walks and the use of soundscapes to think about how heritage can be changed and challenged, but also how it can be valued and support the well-being and resilience through changing coastal communities. Next slide, please. This project is supervised by Charlotte Liddon, who is a coastal modeller by background, but increasingly working with coastal communities to understand the significance of climate change, but also how we understand some of the quite complex ideas around coastal communities and the challenges they face. Professor Mark Riley is a human geographer with an interest and background in rural and agricultural environments, and salt marshes represent important and valuable environments that are quite often overlooked. So this project's exploring some of these ideas of liminal waters and reframing some of those public perceptions about how salt marshes are important resilient coastal features. And it's important to note Chris Pearson here as well as the third supervisor, who's a historian of the environment. So it's bringing a really nice range of expertise to quite a pertinent question as we move towards thinking about how these landscapes become more resilient in the future. And the next slide, and I think it's me again. So this one's actually one of mine. So this is a project with Bryony, as you can see, and also Jade Berman, who's at the National Trust in Northern Ireland. And this is really building on some of the opportunities that we're going to foster and develop throughout this programme of PhD projects with the National Trust. And Stuart mentioned earlier on, and Bryony's mentioned the opportunities for placements. And this one really has, this project and this PhD proposal really has evolved out of an ongoing dialogue around the role of the National Trust in Northern Ireland within coastal change and the large number of communities and opportunities that are offered in Northern Ireland to explore some of these ideas. And some of these traditional approaches of using oral histories in this case have really not been sort of explored to the same depth they have elsewhere. So this is really quite a nice, interesting project to explore how we can use some of these methods to shape and engage with communities as to how they develop and build resilience in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is me again. I will hand over in the moment to Bryony. So this one's a slightly different project. So this is by myself and Charlotte. So covering very much a much more physical geographies process here and environmental processes of fluvial, coastal, and Julie and Ryan are both at Network Rail. So Network Rail have identified that the North Wales Coastal Railway is a piece of critical infrastructure, not just for transport in the sense of freight and materials, but also for the communities that exist along that North Wales line. Many of these communities sit on the coast, and if any of you have caught that train across the North Wales coastline, you'll see that it constantly moves and weaves with the coastline. It very much connects these communities together and is going to be critical for the future of these communities, but is also challenged by the very nature of the landscape through which it traverses. So it's really sort of an opportunity to use some of the opportunities that were made available through here with a new partner, in this case in Network Rail, to explore some of the challenges that these communities have and build on the future. The next one, please. Bryony.
I think it's me. So, from empire to ecology, environmental, colonial, and industrial legacies of the Manchester Ship Canal. So the first thing you may think is that Manchester is definitely not a coastal city, which would be true. It's in the middle of the UK, but it is connected into the River Mersey by the Manchester Ship Canal, a really significant piece of engineering of the late Victorian period. So it's constructed between 1887 and 1894. It costs a staggering £15 million at the time. And it really transforms Manchester from this kind of inland industrial hub heartland into being a port city with direct access to the Atlantic. So in doing so, it changes the geography of trade, industry and power in late 19th century Manchester and Britain. And it connects Manchester into a range of global debates, problems, ideas, solutions. So the project will be using a combination of archives and community engagement to explore the environmental, industrial and colonial legacies of the Manchester Ship Canal. Again, it's very interdisciplinary. So Heather is in geography at Liverpool. Sarah is in French. She's a lecturer in French, and myself as third supervisor at Hull. And we'll really be pooling that interdisciplinary experience into supervising the student who takes on this project. So if we can just click forward, and I think we're back to Neil.
Thank you very much. So this project is a much more international one. It actually draws and explores some of the linkages between Liverpool and Trinidad, and thinking about deltas as sites for emotional climate adaptation and intergenerational water stories. And the supervisory team here span Shelda, Jane Smith, who's at Liverpool and is a human geographer with a background in public health as well, and Cassandra Gupta at Hull, who's got interest in colonialism and slavery, with a particular interest in the Caribbean as well. So this is really building on personal experiences, but also a supervisory team that has extensive experience of looking at ethnographies, intergenerational storytelling, and thinking about how information stories have shaped resilience within these locations, but also exploring some of the interrelationships between them and how these can be used and built into environmental change understanding, but also always moving forward for coastal and community resilience. I think it's back to Stuart on this one.
Thank you, Neil. So I have the pleasure of introducing the last project, I think, of this evening, which is Hydromythologies, Mythic Ecologies of Healing in Coastal Britain. It's supervised across Liverpool and Hull by Shelda Jane Smith, who's a human geographer, Heather Sangster, who's a geographer, physical geographer, and myself. And it looks at stories and mythologies of the coast. And it's particularly wanting to think about how stories connect to well-being, to leisure, and to sensory ethnography. So, for example, people who are swimming, wild swimming in the water, or walking by the coast, or indeed doing other leisure activities by the sea. How does that contribute to well-being? But also, how does it evoke coastal mythologies? So it's a project that blends literature with human geography. It thinks about also the physical geography of the coast, and how stories not only shape past imaginings of the coast, but can also help heal and improve well-being today and for the future. Okay, so I'm handing back to Neil now. Just a brief word from me to talk about what we offer in terms of the awards.
I'm just going to hand over to Alan, if that's okay, because we do have a final project that hasn't been advertised as yet, but will be going live in the next day or so. Alan.
Yes, so this is a project on the colonial identity of the city of Liverpool through its use of ancient Greek and Roman art in the architecture of the city. So images of sea gods and sea nymphs and sea creatures built into the architecture of the city. Did that change over time? What did that say about the city's self-identity as a maritime mercantile city during that period of the British Empire, when they were very much looking towards Greece and Rome for their cultural identity and political justifications? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So what are we offering? We provide a full funding for 3.5 years through the studentship. We're offering a full tuition fee waiver. So that means that your tuition fees are covered. And at Liverpool, we're in the fortunate position where we can offer also an overseas scholarship for an exceptional student in a couple of the years. We have an annual stipend that is currently worth just over 21,000. Competitive training research grant per year of a minimum of £1,500. So that's going to support you in undertaking your research, whether it's through attending conferences, undertaking the field work, or undertaking additional training that you want to identify. We'll also provide access for cohort-wide training opportunities. That's in addition to the 1,500, and that might include residential training. And we'll also offer placements with our partners. I'm going to answer one of the questions here that's already appeared in the chat, and that's just to say that the placements will be flexible with partners. We're not sort of stipulating where they'll happen. There is flexibility with those, so it will recognise and enable people that may have caring commitments to actually undertake placements within local partnerships. Certainly within Liverpool, we have National Trust sites, but also opportunities for training. So we're very aware that some of the opportunities might enable people to undertake the PhDs that maybe have caring responsibilities, etc., but wouldn't be discounted from such placements. If we move to the next slide, please. Okay, just to flag that we have a deadline for applications to the 1st of February. And I will just note here that if you are applying to one of the Liverpool PhDs, you will probably get asked to submit a project proposal. At this stage, don't worry. Either just put not required, or you can copy the text from the advert into that space. It's simply a case of the university runs a centralized system, and for some projects there might not be projects defined. In this case, we've got defined projects, so please just drop the text from the project proposal into that box. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neil. So I said at the start we'd have a lot of time at the end to devote to questions, and I can see we've already got about around 9 questions or so. Perhaps some of those are grouped together. So we'll work our way through these questions, and please, of course, there's plenty of time if you have other questions to pop those into the chat. I understand perhaps the Q&A isn't working at the moment, but please do use the chat function instead. So the first question, I think, Neil, you've already answered this, which is about whether or not placements need to be local to the university in which you are based at. Yes, just to reiterate, there's full flexibility here. We're working with a national organisation in the National Trust, and therefore who have sites across England and Wales and Northern Ireland. So it's very possible to work at a local site for your placements. It's also incredibly possible to work somewhere completely unlocal, depending on your interests. So it's fully flexible. I hope that helps. With question 2, which is about oh, that's the question you answered, isn't it, Neil? About whether or not PGRs work with the partners to develop their placement projects, and the answer is absolutely yes. We will put doctoral students in touch with the partner, or with various partners to work on their placements. So yes, absolutely. With question 3, which is, do you need to have a supervisor to work with confirmed before you apply? No, the supervisors are those who are listed on the projects that we've introduced. So you don't need to get in touch with additional supervisors. In that sense, you're applying for a named project with Living Well with Water, not devising your own. That said, there's plenty of scope within the application, and of course within the project itself, to develop the theme, the approach, and indeed the place that you'd like to work in. So, for example, when I was talking about Signs of the Sea, I mentioned Scarborough perhaps, or Blackpool, and there's plenty of scope to think about exactly where in the UK you'd like to base your project, that and all the other projects as well. So you don't need to contact supervisors before applying. The supervisors are those that we've listed already. Okay, I will hand over to some colleagues to answer some of these questions as well, but just to answer question 4, which is about is there scope or interest to link any of these projects to public health? So that's a really interesting question. We've spoken in some of these projects already about links to health and well-being. Just for example, I was just introducing hydromythology a moment ago, which of course links to emotional well-being on the coast. But in terms of public health, which of course relates to specifically to management and disease and other matters, then yes, absolutely, there may be an opportunity to do that in the projects we've advertised, or there may be projects in future years that link specifically with public health. We're all, as I've mentioned earlier, very interested in working across a range of disciplines, including health sciences. So please, if you don't feel a project fits your interest in public health this year, please do keep an eye on projects that will be coming up next year and in future years. Okay, so because I've been speaking for a while, I'm going to suggest perhaps Bryony or Neil might want to tackle a couple of these questions. Question 5, which is about what does the week-by-week structure look like for a practice-based PhD? I don't know if perhaps maybe I'm better suited for that.
I think Alan was just going to jump in to answer
Alan.
Questions. Stuart, go on.
Yeah, on the previous question about healthcare, just the University of Liverpool has a doctoral focal award on crafting care. So you might want to have a look at that if that's where your research interests are. And then on the work hours, there's a treat it like a job is the answer, that there's a certain number of hours you should commit to per week. They, of course, can be flexible and you know, keep in touch with your supervisor unless any of my colleagues would disagree with that. And of course, from a kind of inclusion point of view, if you've got caring responsibilities, that kind of thing, again, just liaise with your supervisor about what your working day might look like compared to somebody who doesn't have such such caring responsibilities, but think of it like a 37.5 hour a week job, I would say, unless anybody disagrees with that.
I think that's an excellent plan. You'll be pleased to know that I think the working week at the University of Hull is a mere 37 hours. So you can use that to judge whether you apply to Liverpool or Hull. No, I think Alan's spot on that. I'll jump in and answer a couple. So there were some questions about would communities along feeder rivers be classified as coastal communities or coastal heritage? I think we're interpreting this very broadly. As I said, Manchester to some extent becomes coastal because of the shipping canal, but we know these major estuaries drain huge parts of England. 1 in every 5 raindrops that falls in England passes under the Humber Bridge in reaching the sea. So these places have very big geographies. It's a good fact. Very big geographies. We are working broadly in the arts, humanities, social sciences. There is always an argument to be made about how far the coastal or the estuarine reaches inland, and we're also really interested in those connections. These are not isolated places on the periphery. They've been central to ideas of Britain over many hundreds of years. So kind of thinking about those connections over time and space and beyond Britain as well. As colleagues have flagged, there's a number of projects that think about coastal Britain in its global and international context. So there is no answer to that question. It would probably be about a discussion with supervisors to think about kind of what was most relevant to a project and what might be superfluous. In many years of supervising projects between us, we all know that what tends to happen is you end up with a PGR who wants to do everything in the entire history of the world and the globe, and you end up narrowing it down, because ultimately you're writing a thesis of 80 to 100,000 words. You're not writing your great magnus opus. So it will always involve some narrowing down, but I think certainly the projects are intended to be expansive and exciting. So there's plenty of scope there. There was a question about whether several people have asked about whether it's possible to apply for more than one project. We would encourage you to be discerning, so please don't apply to all of the projects. But please kind of go through them, look at which ones are most relevant to you, and which ones you think you have the skill set to really deliver. But yes, you can apply for more than one project, unless Stuart tells me otherwise. But we would encourage you to really pick the things that you think you're most interested in. And you need to write an application that responds to that specific project. It is not a case of kicking in an application that just says you want to do a PhD. It's about thinking about how your skill set applies to this project. And that relates to another question about the discipline from which you are going to apply. So when you click through on the QR code and follow that link, you will see the requirements for the program as a whole and for that particular PhD project. Many of them have some suggested disciplines in there where we think that's a particular skill set you will need, but they typically also say, or a relevant PhD. So I know somebody asked about anthropology. I can see that an undergrad and a master's in anthropology could be deeply relevant to lots of the projects. So take the opportunity in the application to explain to us how your existing disciplinary training is relevant to that project. But yes, we would again be expansive in thinking about that. And some of the projects also have really diverse skill sets within them. You're going to be doing, in the case of the one I'm supervising, you're going to be doing some sedimentological analysis and some archive work. So we're not necessarily expecting somebody to come having done both of those things in an undergraduate or a master's degree. There will be training available, but it's a really interesting opportunity to gain skill sets in both of those areas. And both of those things are very doable with support from the academic staff, because if I can do sedimentological analysis, which I can do, then so can other archivally trained historians. So it'll be a good opportunity to try those things out. Shall I hand over to another colleague to address a couple of questions?
Yeah, I can have a go. I think there was a question about what does the AHRC or NERC funding cover for international students. AHRC and all the UKRI research councils cover the fees for the home students. That means that if you are not a home student, you can apply for either one of the overseas waivers, which is the additional cost that is associated with a non-UKRI student. Or in some cases we do have one or two waivers that we are able to apply, but they're more limited.
Shall I just pick up on fee waivers as well, because there was a question
Sure.
about Hull. So Neil said earlier, we're lucky enough to be able to offer a couple of international fee waivers through the University of Liverpool this year. We are not doing that through the University of Hull this year, but we hope to be able to do it in the future. So we're mixing up what's available in different places at different times. So the opportunity is at Liverpool this year. We hope to be able to do it at Hull in future years, and it may be that different things are available in different years. Certainly there will be different projects on offer next year, so keep your eyes out for that. And if you want to know what the international fees are at either of the universities, that is publicly available information. I cannot remember the number off the top of my head, but it is available on both universities' websites, so you can look that up.
Yeah, and there will be a couple of years where Liverpool don't have any, so it is a bit of a mixing and fluxing. Just looking through the questions as to.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, we are
Yes,
now.
okay,
Yes.
great.
Welcome
Okay.
back.
Thank you. I didn't leave actually, but I think maybe somehow anyway, I'm here. So I think in terms of the sorry, Neil, were you about to answer a question?
I was just going to say there was a question about do any of the projects relate to education or early years education. I'm not sure if we've got any explicitly engaging with early years this year, but it might be that there are projects that come around in future years that explicitly engage with early years education, but I don't think we've got any this year. Hull
No, I think that would be fair to say. We've had a number of them within the Centre for Water Cultures, which is the forerunner doctoral training programme, and I imagine we will have some again in the future, but not that are the most direct fit for that theme this year. There's a question about tuition funding covering residence at one of the universities, or will that need to be paid separately? I think that's a question about fees and stipends. So just to recap what Neil said, the opportunity, the fully funded PhD covers your fees being paid to the university, home fees paid to the University of Hull or Liverpool, and then it includes that stipend of £21,000, just over, which is your annual stipend. So that would be expected to cover your living costs in being resident somewhere commutable to the two universities in question. So just to clarify that point.
Yeah. There was a question about in future years, will projects be September starts? We anticipate that projects will be September starts. If there's a good case made for why a situation we want to delay it, then it might be on an ad hoc basis, but we would anticipate that most projects would start in the September each year, with advertisements going out in a similar time to this year.
There's been a couple of questions about flexibility with part-time PhDs, also some flexibility about remote working. So perhaps we could just, maybe Alan, would you like to answer those?
Oh, you're on mute, Alan.
Sorry, regarding part-time PhDs, I don't know, the funding is for full-time, isn't it? So that would be a complex question. I mean, from a kind of EDI point of view, we would encourage as many people as possible to apply and make reasonable accommodations to that. But I don't know how the funding would work if you wanted to study part-time.
That's fine. Sorry.
Go on,
Neil. Go on, Bryony.
No, I was going to... Go
on. The PhD, if you want to undertake it part-time, that's fine. It's something we can do if it was deemed appropriate.
So I was going to say something similar. We will do our very best to support PGRs who want to work in that manner. Both universities have part-time PhD programs. There may be a little bit of working out to do about funding, as Alan says, but we really would encourage people to consider this opportunity in both modes of delivery.
And in terms of the remote learning, that's also so both universities have their own requirements about residency. You know, neither Hull nor Liverpool requires you to live within a certain range of the city or the university, but we do anticipate that there will be occasions where you will be needed to be on campus and specifically to participate in some of the training events that Bryony outlined earlier. In terms of supervisory meetings, there are some opportunity to be flexible in terms of meeting on Teams and so on, but depending on, that's something to be arranged by within the supervisory team. So there is indeed some flexibility for hybrid working, but obviously also an expectation that there will be occasions where you will need to be on campus. Okay, so I think we are nearly, we have about a couple of minutes left. So I'm just wondering if there is, we perhaps haven't answered all of these questions. I think we're working our way quite well through the list, but I just want to reassure everyone, if we haven't answered your question, we will go back through these over the next few days to make sure we've answered them. There's just a question here about oh yes, okay. So in terms of, a question which has a specific application to ethnomusicology, but I think a broader application which is about the question of what's on your degree certificate when you graduate. So in terms of that, Each of the projects we've introduced does have a particular PhD program linked to it. The details of that, I think, are on the website, so you can find out what the program or what will be on your degree certificate. Because of the fact that this is a unique opportunity to work across disciplines, then there will also be flagged up on your degree certificate that you've done a PhD through the Living Well with Water Awards. Even though these are interdisciplinary awards, universities work that they do award by a primary discipline. So the discipline, the program that you will be registered on will be usually the discipline of your primary supervisor. That said, we will reflect the interdisciplinarity of the program through the degree certificate by naming Living Well with Water as alongside your degree title. So I think that's the final question we've had so far, and it also brings us really nicely to 7 o'clock. So I suggest that we finish there on time. We are sharing for one final time the deadline of 1st of February for applications. That's a deadline for both the University of Hull and University of Liverpool applications, and the QR code that's on screen takes you directly to the web page, which is a University of Hull web page, but which also has links to launch all the Liverpool projects as well as the Hull projects. So it's one QR code for all those projects. Just remains for me to say thanks ever so much for your time and interest and enthusiasm for our awards. We really hope to see lots of applications coming in over the next few weeks by that 1st of February deadline. And please, if you have more questions, you can continue to put those in the chat, and we will get back to you over the coming days. So thanks very much. And I just want to, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to meet people
Thank you very
and
much.
hear from them. Bye-bye.
Bye.